I indicated, it is World Poverty Eradication Day. So the United Nations seems to have done a very good job in setting the agenda for the world. Today, they have pointed the entire world to the direction of poverty eradication, which is also the #1 on their list of sustainable development goals. We have shown you some features which will be repeated just to remind you of the depth of the problem. But we'll also hear from the Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister, Otiko Jaba, on government assessment of the situation and the corresponding steps that are being taken. But before that, let me present you some statistics on what's at stake in Ghana and how much work awaits to be done in eradicating poverty. So you've seen those statistics there, and basically the point is that in Ghana, for example, if you look at the 3 regions in the north, it appears that the prevalence of poverty is much, much, much higher, and this is an undeniable truth. So in commemoration of the day, my colleagues Emefa Etiamwa Eli as well as our Upper East correspondent Albert Sori have been putting together some reports on the level of poverty and the level of inequality that they find there. Let's start with Albert Sori's report.
For 65-year-old Atipoka Ayo, Every single day comes with a battle to survive. She looks too active for someone her age, but this is who she must be if she wants to put food on the table. Atipoka lives in this old madhouse at Anatim in the outskirts of Bolgatanga here in the Upper East region. She lost her husband more than 10 years ago. Before then, her 6 children had died before their 10th birthday.
My first 2 children died shortly after birth. The 3rd child died in my womb before he was taken out. After that, I had twins, a boy and a girl. The girl later died, leaving behind the boy who became a shepherd and looked after his father's sheep. There is a dam not too far away from here. One day, while herding the sheep, the boy went for a swim in the dam and drowned in the process. I had another child after that, but that one too died while he was still crawling.
She recalls that despite the sorrows, she and her husband were generally happy. They worked together on their farms to fend for themselves, and she never had to worry about poverty or hunger. Things, however, took a turn for the worst after Atipoka's husband also died, and her brother-in-law accused her of using witchcraft to kill her children and husband.
My brother-in-law would sometimes call me a cannibal who ate up my entire family spiritually. He would go on to tell me to leave this house because he was not going to allow me to kill him as well. Anytime he did this, I would put my hands on my head and wail. Then he would make mockery of me. He did this for a long time, and one day he disappeared from this house. For 2 years now, we have not seen him. His children live here with me.
With no one to help her, Atipoka now engages in different kinds of petty trades to fend for herself and her 2 nieces who live with her. She says she goes from shea nut processing to weaving of straw baskets and selling firewood, all to earn some income. But the returns from these trades are often a pocket change, just about enough for the next 1 or 2 meals.
From these petty trades, I managed to buy food for us. As for clothing, I don't even talk about it. I have 1 skirt and a blouse, which I have used for the past 5 years, and I have no cloth to wrap myself with. So just imagine that, using the same clothes for 5 years. Sometimes I don't even want to go to church because I feel like an outcast among the congregation, but the pastor has spoken to me against having such thoughts, so I keep going to church each time in these same clothes.
The Widows and Orphans Movement, a women empowerment organization, has been helping Atipoka and many other women in similar situations. They helped Atipoka to learn a trade in basket weaving and give her some aid once a while. Atipoka tells me, but for the intervention of the Widows and Orphans Movement, she would have been homeless or even dead, because this house which she lives in now once got ripped apart by a storm and she was left with no roof over her head.
All my rooms were destroyed. In those days, anytime it threatened to rain, I'd run to that nearby house for shelter. It continued like that until a friend introduced me to the madam at the Widows and Orphans Movement. Then she sent people to come and fix 2 rooms for me.
Atipoka says she would appreciate help if it comes, but for her, Asking for more help will amount to pushing her luck because her situation before now was far worse off. She puts the amount of money she and her nieces live on at an estimated 4 Ghana cedis a day. She is unaware of any government interventions for people like her. Nonetheless, she has resolved to be content with her current financial situation. For her, she must crawl her way to survival one step at a time, every single day. Reporting for Joy News, Albert Sori, Anatim, Bolgatanga.
Gateway to Ashaiman. Wherever you come from Accra, from Tema, from wherever you come, you pass through Tulaku. And Tulaku faces the ceremonial motorway. And he said, and I saw a disgrace to Ashaiman and the landowners.
We have got people who are ready to do petty trading. So if these loans are given to them for a little interest, I think they will be able to cope with the situation.
We'll be happy, we'll be glad if authorities or the government in power now will come to our aid and make a policy that no, Tulaku is near the Tamamoto way. The area must be demarcated and developed. We shall be happy, very, very happy.
Answering the call of October 17 to end poverty, a pathway to a peaceful and inclusive societies. This is the theme on which this year's International Day for the Eradication of Poverty is being marked.
It's very difficult, but I am only managing. By the grace of God, I'm managing. I thank God my boy is in his last form. I've paid his school fees. I've paid his YC registration money and what have you. So I'm now a bit okay, but I'm left with the daily aspect of a parent. When school is on a session, then I become hot.
Especially like they're on vacation.
Then I'm on pension now. That is what is adjusting me to manage my family. Otherwise, I don't know what I will do. I'm an industrial mechanic, but I have not gone to practice what I learned. I'm now stick to my father's school for all these years.
63-year-old Emmanuel Zonya has lived in Tulaku all his life. He is the owner and proprietor of the Modern Age Institute, formerly the National Primary School at Tulaku, a suburb of Ashaiman in Accra. This is the school most children in this community receive early childhood education. For Mr. Zonya, life in Tulaku is certainly not normal.
Nothing is being done about our situation here. Our main problem is demarcation, and then they give us the go-ahead to put up permanent structures, and then we will live as normal human beings. Sanitation, what have you? No.
Homes, largely made of wooden structures, are the shelters of residents of Tulaku. The men in the slum are best described as hustlers, while the women engage in tabletop and mini-shop trading. The youth, both boys and girls, are often on the streets, hawking all manner of items, including sachet water.
Some deal in Fula and Nono. Some sell Guru. Only few go out to work somewhere. Some few go to the harbor, not as a worker, but to go and walk around to see whether they can get some job. They are few lose. Some rare animals, not outside, but in the house. Some sleep with the animals in the house. Yeah, I must be frank, but recently the assembly is trying to get them in a confined place near the pylons.
Assemblyman for the area, Yakubu Amadu, says those perceived as well-to-do in the community are the individuals who operate their private shops and public places of convenience.
Some are selling provisions to earn a living. Some have put up toilet facilities and they are taking care of it. Some too are owning a shower and then they have got standpipe where people come to patronize. I think those are the people I think are better off in terms of livelihood.
Life in Tulaku is survival for the fittest. Access to decent accommodation, basic social amenities, and good sanitation facilities has become their major headache.
Them to migrate from their villages and then they find themselves here in the area. You'll be surprised, a single room, more than 10 people occupy a single room for the night. They are crowded in the room.
Those people who have got families, some have been laid off from work and now they are jobless. They don't know what to do to earn a living. Their wives too don't work. They are already housewives and they need financial support. But because he's no more working, he's with the husband, because the husband is no more working and the wife too is already a housewife, there's nothing to live on.
We have water distributed all around, but it's difficult to tap water into our homes. I recently applied for water to come to my house. The estimate they gave me was almost 10 million or 1,000. A poor resident in Tulaku, where am I going to get that money?
Certainly, where is he going to get that money? But you can go on with a lot more analysis. We'll hear what government has to say about this. And we're looking at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection.
We must hold hands together and work together and create a better life.
All right.
We are on it.
Okay.
So the Kayaye, we are coming full force. We are giving them trolleys. We are giving them training, increasing the numbers, taking them to school with the SHS and all of that and skills training.
Okay. We'll see how it goes. So that is the... That's according to the minister. I'll bring you that information in a bit. But closely linked to poverty reduction is food security. And that's why the hunger eradication, when it comes to that particular subject, is the number 2 on the list of the Sustainable Development Goals. My colleague Justice Beidou is reporting in our JoyNews agenda today that food prices are likely to go up this year following the devastation caused by the fall army worm invasion earlier. He joins me in the studio for a very quick one before we bring you that particular story. So, Justice, tell us what is spectacular about this report. We've seen it. I'm sure some of our viewers have seen it earlier this morning. But why should we be alarmed?
We should be alarmed because already these are very vulnerable communities, talking about especially the 3 regions of the north. Vulnerable communities that suffer the most in terms of food security and also malnutrition, for example. A lot of very poor people living there already, and so who depend already on the meager level of food that is harvested in the year. Note that this part in the savannah, they've got only just about 5 to 6 months of farming season, which is so for about half of the year there are no rains, there's no farming, going on, there's no activity, and so how you are able to do within the whole year depends on how much you're able to harvest and store within that 5 months. And so if we are having a cut because of how devastating these worms have been, then yes, we should be worried. We should be worried. So how does it strike you? Or how did it strike you when you went there and you looked at the level of poverty? That these are farmers who, by the way, are farming for us. You know, those of us who live elsewhere.
it must have struck you, the level of poverty there as well.
Yes, I tell you, in fact, we didn't set out to do this story. I'm actually filming for a bigger documentary on the Witches Camp Saga story up north. And so in one of the interviews, we were speaking to some of the women who in the market will tell you that, look, we haven't got anything to depend on. All we depend on is to farm, is to help people on their farms. And when they've harvested at the end of the farming season, they then can compensate us with some amount of food and also some amount of money. Now, all of these farmers who we depend on have lost their livelihood. And so how then do we benefit? How then are we able to go into sustain ourselves? And so these are people who haven't got people to depend on, and so depend on farmers. And so you're not even just talking about the farmers. You're talking about third-party people who haven't got families and are depending on farmers. The other people you also talk about are retailers who travel all the way from big towns like Accra and Kumasi and go there to buy stuff like maize and then sell in places like Awobulushi, where you and I would go. Yeah, and so it's a huge issue that deserves the huge attention.
And you heard earlier this year as well, when we had that particular problem, we had the Minister of Agriculture saying that the issue had been curtailed, but of course there were a lot of people who disagreed with them, including the Peasant Farmers Association. But without boring you with too much talk between myself and Justice, who, by the way, I'll thank you very much for bringing us that story. We're looking forward to seeing that story. But let me congratulate you before I let you go. We're going to take that story. Let me congratulate you, Justice, by the way, and my colleague, my two other colleagues, Manasseh Azura Winnie and Seth Kwame Boateng, have been nominated for the West Africa Media Excellence Conference Awards, the very first ever by the Media Foundation for West Africa. So you're in which category again?
Oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
Category,
oil and gas. And you can trust Justice to bring you the masterpieces of his, he's a beautiful storyteller. So congratulations, and we hope that you win.
We hope so too.
Okay. Justice Baidu there. Let me bring you that report which we're talking about, for which reason we all need to be worried about the food security when it comes to it. Like I'm saying, it is closely linked with poverty. Watch this.
In this land, there is uncertainty. This time of the year should be the major harvest season, and yet there is very little to take home. Wumbe Al-Hassan has spent nearly 2,000 cedis cultivating this 10-acre farm over the last 6 months. Now all the days of hard work has been brought down by the fall armyworms.
Life is not normal again. There is hunger looming. How are we going to feed ourselves? How are we going to feed our families?
Like Wumbe, hundreds, possibly thousands of farmers share similar stories of loss and pain. Since March this year, the pests have invaded nearly 120,000 hectares of farmland. Government pledged a fight back with its pesticide control program. That intervention, it seems, failed to trickle down to the people who needed it the most.
Extension officers here are woefully inadequate. One officer will be taking, let's say, 20, 25 communities. He cannot pass the information.
Malnutrition resulting from a lack of food is already causing enough havoc. It is responsible for up to a third of all childhood deaths in Ghana now. 1 in every 5 children is now stunted. This part of Ghana, already one of the country's poorest, is also the most affected. It is the reason why any further shortage in food resulting from this invasion could be grave. People in Bimbila, like many other farming communities, worry. But the impact of this year's armyworm invasion will be felt in places far from here. Inside the Bimbila market, today is market day.
This is one of the biggest food markets in the northern region. It is from here that foodstuffs like maize are sent to bigger cities like Accra and Kumasi. But this year, it seems it's not going to be business as usual.
Inside, I meet Fauzia Zainabu, who retails maize from here for sale in markets in Accra.
Last year, we were buying a bowl of maize for 2 cedis. This year, it's 3 cedis, and it's even early days yet. There will be shortage. So in Accra, the price can go up to about 7 cedis.
Researchers say the worms could be even more destructive in the next farming season. It is the reason why an effective response should be now rather than later. Justice Baidu, JoyNews, Bimbila.
So poverty, food security, that's what we're talking about. And it's all about how we stay, not below the poverty level. So what is the sector minister saying? Gender, children and social protection is what I'm talking about. Otikwa Fisajaba is the woman in charge. And she's assuring that plans, including those targeting girls at tender ages, have been lined up to achieve a Ghana devoid of poverty. I have been interacting with her.
LEAP is another social intervention. It's a flagship of the Ministry of Gender.
Is it working?
It is working. Without the LEAP, a lot of vulnerable people will sleep hungry in this country. Okay. For you here in urban areas, you might think that 1 cedi is a pittance. But for somebody who has no source of income, has nobody to help them, because maybe all their children have died, and they are above 65, or their children have moved away from where they are. Some of them are accused as alleged witches. Is this LEAP is 64 Ghana bi-monthly for
each household,
for a single beneficiary, a single household beneficiary, if the person is one.
How many are we looking at the moment?
If there are 2 beneficiaries, then it goes up to 76. Okay. If there are 3, it goes to 88. If there are 4 or more, it goes to 106 Ghana. Okay. And the categories are for the aged above 65, orphans and vulnerable children, persons who are disabled and are not productive, and then lactating mothers or pregnant women with children under 1 year. It's difficult for them to work. And we are also bringing on a new LEAP with an exit plan, adding special cases of widows, persons with breast cancer, fistula, sickle cell disease, Down syndrome, all those groups that make it difficult for a person to work. We are also ensuring that the LEAP is not just about giving somebody money, but educating them about their self-worth, about their consumption, how they should eat well, the national health insurance, we've put the aged on it, and ensure that the children too are in school and eating well. Okay. And then we check their blood pressure. We've added that as well since I came as a screening program. Whilst the cash transfers are going on, check for diabetes, check their eyes, their teeth, obesity, give them advice on health issues. Even we are working with Dr. Beatrice Wiafi to also check for breast cancer and prostate. So
bottom line, LEAP is going very well as far as you're concerned. We'll look forward to getting some statistics on that as well. Currently, but are there any practical steps, ma'am, to deal with region specifics? Because there are some regions that have more poor than others. So if you take, for example, we've heard the northern region, there are more people who are poor there. Are there any region-specific programs to deal with those the poor in those areas?
Yeah. Currently, the LEAP is handling 213,000 plus households nationwide. And that addresses almost 1 million beneficiaries. We are moving it to 350,000 by the end of this year. They've already gone out to do the targeting. And so Ghana has about 2.2 million as extreme poor identified. And every day, some go rich and some also become impoverished. So we are doing the analysis to find out so that we can update our records. For the northern region, the prevalence of poverty is the highest in Upper East, Upper West, and Northern region. And the prevalence of child marriage is also highest there. So we have a framework, a strategic national framework to end child marriage. That was also started under Oye. So the implementation of all these laws falls on my poor shoulders. And so
I mean, at least the foundations have been laid for you.
Yes,
the foundations,
I'm
which
very
is great,
grateful
which
to
is
my
great.
predecessors,
So we look,
all of them.
So we look forward to the
implementation
and evaluating you based on that and how you do your implementation.
It's happening live as we speak. We have been able to validate the National Plan of Action for human trafficking. We've been able to get an adult shelter. We've been able to get the children's shelter for child trafficking renovated through the Ministry of Interior and Societe Generale. And then prosecutions, we are increasing. Also rescuing missions, we are hearing more of it. The End Child Marriage Program, we are intensifying the awareness. The Girl Child Initiative is coming. The Operation Get Off the Street is coming. We are asking for a waiver for birth certificates so that every child in Ghana will have a birth certificate and ensuring that everybody's child is in school.
I have a few minutes to wrap up.
Yes, we are doing great things
the way you say the A, it's like,
You see, our president is in a hurry. And he's on all of us to
we'll be here to evaluate you on that in the next maybe 3 years. But I'm supposed to wrap up, but I can't do that without talking about a few case studies. My case study number one is a story that we have done as part of this Eradication of Poverty Day at Tulaku in Ashaiman. I don't know if perhaps your office will be able to help them. There's a slum there. We've done this documentary about that slum. They don't have money, so apparently they're not taking their children to school because they don't have money.
In Ashaiman?
Yes, in Ashaiman, Tulaku, to be specific. They want where they live.
Take their children to school.
Apparently.
But school is free now.
And they say they cannot pay for water or to get connection or have water connected to their abodes. They want the place to be properly demarcated so that they can put up humane enough building so they can live in it. I'm not sure if this has come to your attention, but of course that's why the media is there. Now that we've brought this to your attention, perhaps we have to give you a bit more information on that. Is there anything that the ministry perhaps can do for Tulaku, in Ashaiman?
It's not about only Tulaku. We handle the whole nation. And that area has an MP and an MMDC. They have assemblymen. There is a process. We don't take over people's jobs. We work with various agencies and ministries and people to ensure that we achieve the goals, because the Ministry of Gender has the mandate to lead and coordinate on issues of social protection. And so for Tulaku people, I would say that you need to speak to your MP and the Assembly. The Minister for Water and Sanitation is also there, and I will convey this. They can write to me, and I will talk to you. We don't work in isolation. We work together because it's teamwork. We work with the traditional rulers, the media, the NGOs, donor partners, other agencies and ministries. All of us, it's a collective responsibility for us to eradicate poverty. So Tulaku is part of Ghana.
But they should work through their local government representatives and then see how you can help them as well. My case study number 2, which is my final one.
But before you go there, I want to say this. If your child is not in school, it cannot be because of lack of money, because from kindergarten to SHS, it's free. And we are giving uniforms through the Ministry of Education and school bags and books and all of that.
So that's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse for
in this
any
case,
child.
Is this an area that the ministry can come in? Because then if you have your children, because social welfare, if you have children, the children belong to you, but they belong to the state as well. So if you're not taking them to school, which you should, then the social welfare should step in.
We will do the awareness. I keep saying that we don't build roads, we build people. So it's the advocacy. We have a big communication plan that we are putting into place so that awareness, you are going to be bombarded with awareness on all the rights of our people. As I said, I'm blessed that I have my predecessors have all these policies. Mine is the implementation. And that will be a collective responsibility of you, the media, and the good people of Ghana.
The media has always been happy to help. My final case study is a hostels for Kai. One of the things that your
I'm very passionate about the
party. That your party promised that we're going to build hostels for them. And in fact, in 2012, I interviewed Kayo, who said that they are afraid, they sleep at Tema Station. They're afraid sometimes they're going to be raped, their monies are going to be stolen. Exactly. So they were very excited when you promised to build hostels for them. How far were that? Are the hostels ready?
Oh, how?
You haven't just come.
No, well, you cannot build in 9 months. Especially
if you have money, you can build.
We came and met a debt, and you are aware of it. So it's important that we manage the economy and grow it. This is a collective responsibility. We've been able to do things in such a way that taxes have been reduced for at the ports. We've made it paperless. We are ensuring that the KIA levies have been taken
Let's deal specifically with the KIA, because they breed a cycle of poverty with the children they're having on the streets, etc. I always feel for these children. It is not their fault that they find themselves on the back of this woman who is carrying a heavy load on her head, but they're having to deal with it. So what can we really do about it?
Not
what has been done?
In isolation. That's what I want you to understand. You cannot handle any one issue in isolation. The issue of kaya and accommodation is that where they sleep is not good. If you encourage them to have accommodation, they might not want to go back. But as I said, we promised that this will happen. For it to work well, the mental conditioning, the sensitization is very important, that those home in the rural areas should not come to Accra. And those who are here, we are organizing them so that they can go back.
That's an argument that the NDC made at the time you made this promise.
But whilst they are here, you must live in dignity. And so we are working with partners. Quite a number of people have brought proposals. The market women themselves are saying that we should have one region, one market, one modern market. One region, one modern market. And they want hostels.
With hostels, of
not
course.
only for the kaya,
for the market
women who come from rural areas to sell their ingredients.
You've bitten more than you can chew, I guess.
No, because it is the will of the people. This is what they want. The people want change. The government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo promised change and a better Ghana with equal opportunities for all of us. We must hold hands together and work together and create a better life. And we are on it. So the KIA, we are coming full force. We are giving them trolleys, we are giving them training, increasing the numbers, taking them to school with the SHS and all of that, and skills training.